Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Denver Scleroderma Education Summit, brought to you by the National Scleroderma Foundation Rocky Mountain Chapter. This session is titled Helping Kids Cope When a Parent Lives with a Chronic Illness. My name is Cindy Bessellever, and I am a member of the National Board and the Rocky Mountain Chapter Advisory Committee. Before we get started, I wanted to give you some quick notes about this session. This education event is brought to you by UC Health, a longtime partner of the National Scleroderma Foundation Rocky Mountain Chapter. UC Health, located in Aurora, Colorado, has been designated as a Scleroderma Research Treatment Center by the National Scleroderma Foundation. Their multidisciplinary program provides comprehensive care for people living with scleroderma and also provides patients opportunities to participate in clinical research trials. The National Scleroderma Foundation in no way endorses any clinical trials, treatments, or studies mentioned in this session. Because the manifestations and severity of scleroderma vary among individuals, personalized medical management is essential. Therefore, it is strongly recommended that all drugs and treatments be discussed with your individual doctor. This webinar is for educational purposes only. So now the business is done. On to Dr. Kilbourn. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Kristen Kilbourn. Dr. Kilbourn is an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Colorado, Denver. She earned her MPH in Health Promotion at San Diego State University of California, followed by a PhD in Clinical Health Psychology at the University of Miami. She mentors doctoral students at CU Denver, where she is an active research lab. She is currently involved in several research projects relating to psychosocial adjustment in medical patients and their caregivers. She serves on the the Medical Advisory Board for the National Scleroderma Foundation Rocky Mountain Chapter. Her clinical orientation is predominantly cognitive, behavioral, and existential, and she enjoys working with individuals, both patients and their caregivers and families, couples who are dealing with a medical condition, and leading group interventions. Dr. Kilbourn is particularly interested in the mind-body connection and the impact of stress and adaptive coping of health and wellness. When she is not working, she enjoys spending time with her family, traveling, riding her horse, hiking, mountain biking, skiing, and yoga. Sounds like she enjoys Colorado like a lot of us do. I am honored to have known Dr. Kilbourn for many years. We are grateful for the time that she has served on our medical advisory board and all that she has done for our chapter. Thank you, Dr. Kilbourn.
Great, thank you. So nice to be here, I guess is the right. Let me see if I can share my screen. Well, so today I am going to be talking about how to help kids cope with parents that have chronic illness, scleroderma in particular. Knowing that, the things that I'm going to talk about are very general, because with kids, it's really also thinking about the developmental stage where they are in terms of how they're processing things, how they understand things and that. But I hope that at least today, this session will give some general ideas, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions and discussion. So just a little overview of what I'm going to talk about today. So first, just how to talk to children about illness, and then a little bit about just a reminder of how children typically express fear and anxiety, again, very much associated with their developmental age and where they are. A little bit about parenting with chronic illness, and then should be tips to build resilience, both within yourself, within your family, and within your children. So that's the overview. So first, I want to just talk a little bit about how do you start that discussion, or what are some important things to consider when you're talking with your children about your illness, whether you're just diagnosed or there have been changes in your illness, and it's important to talk with them. So first is share appropriate information. Obviously, this is needs to be tailored to the age of the children, what's appropriate, what they can handle. But it's trying to be honest without sparking a lot of fear and uncertainty. Because children are very good at being able to pick up when their parents aren't quite telling them everything or aren't being completely honest. They probably read a lot of cues, like even nonverbal cues that we give off if we're feeling anxious about talking about something. So you want to be honest, again, without making them overly scared, but so that they feel secure that they're getting the information that they need to know. And then that follows allowing them to ask questions. So oftentimes you can make that very much, start it with, let me ask you, what do you want to know? And make it very open-ended so they can ask questions, have time, and leave that very open that, whenever you have questions, you can always come and talk with me or dad or, any of us. And we're always available and open to questions that you may have. So, because oftentimes children may feel, we don't want them to feel like that the illness that you're dealing with is a big secret, that they can't ask questions or that they're not allowed to ask questions at any time. So allowing them to ask questions is important. Allow and facilitate expression of their feelings, asking them, how do you feel about this? What are some of the things you might be feeling? With kids, we know that it's not just emotionally what they're feeling. Oftentimes, especially younger children, and we'll talk about this in a minute, don't necessarily, or I should say, are not able to identify emotions to be able to say, oh, I'm feeling scared or frightened or angry. It may come out somatically. They may have a stomach ache or a headache or may feel it in their body somewhere. So it's important to find ways to allow them to express. It could be even through different kinds of creative activities that they do, where they can express, with artistic kinds of things or kind of acting things out or through music. So think about different ways that allow them to express some of those emotions that they may be feeling. Allow them to be able to help in their own way. This is really important. If you are suffering some sort of physical effects or side effects, or let's say, you have a lot of fatigue or issues with strength and being able to carry things, or even just help with like cooking dinner or taking care of the house, taking care of younger siblings, taking care of pets, giving children something or things that they can do is really important. It gives them a sense of some control, that there's something that they can do to help the family. And it helps reduce some of those feelings of helplessness that they feel. Talk to them about how, your illness may change the environment. If it's something around the house or if it's something around sort of the daily types of things that you do, a change in the schedule, if it's having to go to doctor's appointments or having to slow down and take a nap or just be able to sit and relax to let your body rest. Any of those kinds of things, if it's, pain, not being able to do as much because you have pain and that changes some of the routines. Let them know about that and talk with them about that. And then as much as you can, the things that don't need to change, try to keep them consistent. So children feel more secure when they know what to expect. So those sort of daily routines that we have in our families are really important to them. So if for some reason those are going to change or parts of those are going to change, let them know about that ahead of time. And then as much as you can, other things, try to keep them kind of in that same routine to give them that sense of security. Now, I found this on the internet and I love this. This was tips from a 12-year-old's view on things that kids want to know if they have a parent who is suffering from some sort of medical or health issue. And it's very much mirrors what we were just talking about, but I love just putting this in the voice of a 12-year-old. So first it's, I need information. again, so we talked about that. I need comfort from family and friends. So thinking about, this may be a time to think about, is there a close family member? It could be a grandparent, it could be an aunt or uncle, it could be a very close family friend, someone who can also step in and be that sounding board for your child, that maybe things that they don't want to talk to you about because they're afraid that they may upset you by asking questions or talking about their feelings, but they can get some comfort from someone that's sort of outside the primary family unit, but that they trust. So this is something to consider. I need to know what the other parent is doing. I thought this was really interesting. So this example was, I don't remember the specific illness. It wasn't scleroderma, but the child was saying, if mom's in the hospital or mom's somewhere, I want to know what dad's doing too, where dad is, just so I'm not feeling scared because both of my parents aren't here and I'm not sure where they are. So being clear on that. Needing to have someone to talk to. So again, this fits in with that comfort. So whether it's the parent, this could be a professional, could be helpful. This could be, like I said, a close family friend, grandparent, someone like that, but having people that they can talk to. This was another one too I thought was interesting. I need time to think. So, kids need to process the information. So that's, when they're getting new information, we need to respect that rather than giving them the information and right away saying, do you have questions? What do you want to talk about? Recognizing that they probably need some time to process this information and then giving them that chance to think about it before going back, asking questions, or maybe even adding more information. So you may start with just the very general basic information, let them process that. When they're ready, you can give them more information and have them ask questions. I need to be able to talk to the sick parent. So this was, again, this example was a parent who was in the hospital or making frequent hospital visits. So again, comfort to the children when they're dealing with a lot of uncertainty and unknowns, that causes more anxiety. So at least being able, even if the ill parent is not in the home, that they're able to have some way to connect with them, right? Talk with them or connect with them, which then ties into the last one, is that, they want to be able to go to the hospital if their parent's in the hospital and be able to see them. That's important. Again, that connection, to keep that connection. So just as a reminder, we talked a little bit about this, but remembering that children, young children, and even teenagers, which I'm in that stage now with 2 teenagers, aren't always very good at expressing their emotions. A lot of adults aren't very good at expressing their emotions, but children especially, they don't always have the words to be able to identify what they're feeling. But they may have, as we talked about, somatic symptoms. So you may see that, after you've talked with your child about what's going on in the family, or even before, if they're sensing something is changing, they may complain of more, headaches, stomach aches. You may see them acting out more than usual. That's their way with managing or dealing with some of the emotions they may be feeling inside. Sleep, like many of us, sleep is sort of that window into how we're doing emotionally, how we're feeling. So you may see this in your children where they may, been good sleepers, but now they're not sleeping so well. They may wake up in the middle of the night scared. They may have night terrors, things like that. Sometimes you see that they regress a little bit when they first get this news and something's changing within the family. So they may suddenly seem less mature and regress back to an earlier stage. And this could even include things like starting to wet the bed. And so again, this is a clue that, they may have some emotions that they need to process or work through with either you or someone else. Again, it could be a professional or someone that they're close to. And then sometimes there's this kind of shutting down where they seem very stoic and they show very little emotion. And kids do this quite often because they don't want to upset their parents. They can recognize that their parents are going through a tough time. And so they want to be the good child, the one that's not going to cause any problems, not going to talk about emotions, and they'll come across as very stoic, showing no emotion. But when you notice this change, this in your child, this may be a sign that they actually do have some emotions that would be helpful for them to be able to express in a healthy way. And then just this little reminder for those who have teens or have had teens, sometimes, well, I should just say as teens, as we know, teens oftentimes like fluctuate, where at times they seem extremely mature and responsible. And then within, minutes or hours, you see this other side where, they're not really as mature as I thought they were. So it's to remember that, sometimes you may see that side where they seem so much wiser, older and wiser than their years and how they're dealing with things, how they're managing their emotions. But then other times you may just see that they are, kind of an emotional wreck, really, really struggling. So, with teens, it's a lot of the sort of up and down is not unusual. This sort of emotional instability, because part of that is just what those teenage years are often like. And then you combine that with some sort of stressor in the family, and that just may be amped up. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit also about parenting with a chronic illness. So certainly one thing is, or one of the most important things, and if you've gone to any of my other talks where I focus more on either, the person who is dealing and managing scleroderma or the family member, loved one, partner, caregiver, I always talk about self-care and making that a priority. So make your own health a priority, right? Because it's that old, comment or thing that we talk about where, before you put the oxygen mask on your child, put it on yourself first. So it's the same here. We need to take care of ourselves first so that we can be the parents that we want to be to our kids, and at least the best place we can be. So making that a priority. It could be a time to create new traditions with your children, right? Oftentimes when people are dealing with chronic medical issues, there's a focus initially, especially on all the things that you can't do, right? So there may be things that are harder to do as a parent. Maybe you can't be as active with your kids anymore, or you don't have as much time available because of your self-care. So this could be a time to think about, rather than focusing on some of the things we can't do, maybe we can create some new traditions. If I feel like I can't be as active right now, maybe I can think of some fun, sort of creative, artsy types of things that we can do that don't take a lot of my energy. That would be fun. So creating new traditions can be really important. Let your family know how you're feeling. Kids are very intuitive. They are very connected to us in ways that we don't even realize. And if we're not feeling good, they usually can pick up on that pretty quickly. They notice those subtle changes. So it's better to let them know, hey, mommy's not feeling great today, or mommy's feeling really tired today, or mom's having more pain and needs to rest a little more, just needs a little bit of quiet time. So let them know how you're feeling, rather than trying to be stoic and present a certain image that will just make them feel more anxious, because it won't match. They'll be able to pick up that something's different, but if you're not saying that, then that just causes them confusion and is more of a chance for anxiety and fear to develop. Another one is stop feeling guilty. I see a lot of parents, who have some kind of chronic illness. And they talk a lot about this, especially with young children. The shoulds. I should be doing these things. I should be spending this time with my children. Those shoulds are a sign of cognitive distortions. And, you know, one thing you can ask yourself is, what evidence do I have that I should be doing these things? So this is a time to really focus on, you know, it's not an issue of quantity, I always say, it's quality, right? So you may not be able to spend as much time with your kids because of issues around your illness, but you can still have that quality time. So working on, you know, recognizing that pressure that you may be putting on yourself, that's like going in your head, recognizing that and challenging that. And the shoulds are usually a sign that there's probably some distortions there, because they're usually one of those, the self-talk kind of in our head that leads to guilt. Be willing to say no. You know, this is something with, especially folks with autoimmune disorders, we know that there's so much fluctuation in how you feel from day to day, week to week. You can't always predict. And so it's really important that you're able to recognize, what are the things that I want to prioritize, that are important to me, and make those, you know, a high priority. And what are some of the things that, you know, aren't that important to me? And can I start to say no to some of those things? So being able to say no is a really important skill, being able to be assertive in your communication. And then getting support. Recognizing that, you know, if you're not able to do all the things for your kids or in the family that, let's say, previously you were able to do, ask for support. You know, use your social support network. It could be, whether it's, you know, things like we talked about of finding some people that your kids could talk to and have that emotional connection, to just tangible support of people that could help, you know, give your kids rides to after school activities or to school or things like that. So that's a really important piece in terms of, you know, for supporting yourself and supporting your family. And just some nice tips, thinking more in the family unit, of things that can be really helpful for families to be thinking about. So especially when you're living with a chronic illness like scleroderma, where things, you know, are changing often all the time, maybe a new treatment that you're trying, and maybe you're having a flare and you're having more symptoms. You know, there's all kinds of changes. Kids, as you know, your kids are growing up, there are more demands and things that they may need you to help with, or things that are changing. So regular family meetings can be really helpful. So it could be talking about more logistical kinds of things, as well as just a nice chance to check in. How's everyone doing? What are the plans for the next week? You know, they could be weekly meetings, can be nice. Maybe weekly short meetings, kind of thinking of what's going on in the next week. You know, is one of the parents going to be having treatment and maybe won't feel so well for a couple days, or things like that. Then maybe, you know, you have every month more of an in-depth check-in, where you kind of check in, how's everyone doing emotionally? How are we doing in terms of the distribution of chores and tasks at the house? And do we need to make changes and adjustments to that? So these regular family meetings can be really helpful. Strive for good communication. As always, you know, as when possible, trying to be direct, using assertive communication is really important. Trying not so much to sort of use that beat around the bush or passive communication, which again can cause children to question and get worried because they're not really sure what's going on. They're confused by the communication patterns. Listening carefully to each other is always good. Being able to listen, and oftentimes I say, you know, one of the best ways to do this is to reflect back what you're hearing. So being able to listen, and then, you know, it sounds like you're feeling a little worried about whether we're going to be able to go on vacation this year because you're not sure how dad's going to be feeling. So really listen and be able to reflect back what you're hearing. Looking at things through the other person's eyes. This could be really helpful for kids, especially when they get to be a little bit older, to have a better understanding of what their parents may be dealing with. And then also for us to be able to look through those eyes of our children. And what is their life like? And what would this look like? Having a parent that was dealing with scleroderma and some of those challenges. So being able to have that really empathy and understanding for each other. We talked a little bit about this already at the family meetings, but working together on family responsibilities, changing those as needed, encouraging family events. So, whether it's game night, movie night, going on vacations, things like that. This is really important. As I said, this could be a new tradition that started in your family if you haven't done these things before. And think of other ways to provide support for your kids. So just being there for them, having, again, that quality time. Could be time like before bed, could be time when you're driving them in the car. Just these times where you can provide support, be able to check in with them, see how they're doing, get a sense of what are some of the emotions they may be feeling and processing. And then tips for building resilience. I like this because I think this is a good reminder for all of us. As we know, resilience is a hot topic right now as we are hopefully, knock on wood, coming out of the pandemic and thinking much more about how to build resilience, whether that's building it back up or getting to a better place than perhaps we've ever been. So just some tips for that. First is self-care. So we've already talked about this, but this is really important from the standpoint of families and for our children. So when we as parents, as adults, are taking good care of ourselves, we're modeling that for our kids. So they're seeing us, whether it's, making sure we're getting enough sleep, that we're eating healthy, that we're active, all of these kinds of things, that we're not, overusing substances, whether alcohol or marijuana or things like that. We really want to model good self-care, and that will encourage our children also and get them involved in that, right? Get them involved in some of your exercise activities or helping with, nutrition, diet, family planning, things like that. Talking to them about the importance of these things, how these are so important for us to stay healthy, both physically and emotionally. We know the impact of socialization. We've all especially experienced this over the past 2 years and recognized how important it is that we have these connections. For children, especially, as we all know, because of what we've seen in this national crisis that we've been experiencing in terms of children who are really suffering from the effects of the pandemic and not having a lot of social connection. We know that this is really key for kids, that especially this face-to-face interaction is really something that's important to building and maintaining resilience. Giving back is a nice one. So teaching kids to be able to help those that perhaps are in need, allowing them to see us helping others, recognizing that it feels really good to give and to be able to give back. It feeds the soul and teaches them a lot about life. Sleep and eating properly. This very much ties into self-care, but again, it's just being able to model these behaviors and helping your kids to recognize the importance of them. Talking about feelings. As I said, we don't always like to talk about how we feel, yet processing challenges in life, being able to either talk about them, could be writing about them. It could be allowing, like through creative activities, to allow these emotions to come out. Music, art, all of these kinds of things can be really helpful. And again, help to build resilience. Positivity is a big one. So teaching our kids that there's always something positive in any situation, even during very difficult times. One of the activities that I like to recommend to families is, very simple, and it's usually, it could be around the dinner table or sometime towards the end of the day, and it's especially nice when everyone's sort of been out and about, going to school, work, away, coming back together in the evening, is go around and have everyone share 3 positive things that you experienced that day. And they don't have to be big things. They can be just little things like, oh, someone was really nice to me, or, oh, I just experienced, the beautiful sunrise this morning. They can be simple things, but what they do is they first, for each individual, they get us more connected, looking for positive things that are going on in our environment. And then when we share them with others, it's a way of connecting through positive things. So a lot of families where they have chronic illness in one of the parents have found this to be really helpful. And even little kids can do this. And I have one recently, I assigned this to a family, and they have somewhere between 3 and 4-year-old. And he had, every day he came home from preschool, and, every day he'd have even more things. Today, I have 15 positive things. So this was like the highlight of his day with his parents, was being able to share all his positive experiences at the end of the day. And it was great for them because they got to see, through his eyes, all these wonderful things that were happening to him when he was separate from them. So it was a really nice way of connecting. And then imagining new possibilities. So teaching children to imagine things that they may want, their goals, how to support them in achieving their goals, and joining in and helping them to feel good and feel proud of themselves when they achieve those goals. That is a really big key in terms of helping to build resilience. So that was the end of my formal presentation. So I will unshare now. And I don't know if we want questions now or we want to wait until.
We don't have any at this time, so why don't we move on to Anna. And again, Anna Seaman is joining us today as someone who was a child when her mother was diagnosed with scleroderma. She is a freshman at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and Duke University, studying global health and chemistry. Her mother, Jill Seaman, was diagnosed with diffuse scleroderma in June of 2009 when Anna was 6 years old. Her mom received an autologous, can I ever say that word, stem cell transplant in 2014, which has greatly improved her health, and she is feeling much better. Anna graduated last year as valedictorian in her class from Mullen High School, and she is the recipient of the Robinson Scholarship, which has allowed her to attend college, and her scholarship focuses on purposeful leadership, intellectual curiosity, and strength of character and collaborative spirit. And I've got to know Anna and her mother, Jill, very well over the years. They are both very impassioned advocates for scleroderma, and we've been in many meetings together along with Anna's siblings, both at the state capitol here in Colorado with our U.S. Congress men and women in meetings here in Colorado and also in Washington. And I remember a few years ago when we were still able to do visits in person pre-COVID, Anna and Jill and I were all in Washington, and those meetings it's a chaotic day because they're scheduled so closely together, and you're running from, the Senate building to the House building way over on the other side of, the city, and it's a constant fast day. And Anna on that day was trying to help her remember who we were meeting with next, would create little rhymes as we were running in between the meetings. And I remember we were all just cracking up, trying to run as fast as we could, and yet laughing hysterically at her little rhymes about who we were meeting with next. So she's got quite a sense of humor, and she's an amazing young woman. So Anna, would you like to share with us what it was like growing up with your mom having scleroderma?
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. Really impactful experience going to Washington, D.C. Had a lot of fun with everyone. So thanks for sharing that memory. As Cindy stated, my mom was diagnosed with scleroderma when I was really young. So I don't really remember a lot of before she had scleroderma because she had symptoms for a little bit of a long time before she was actually diagnosed. And so pretty much all of my memory up to this date is when my mom had scleroderma. And so there's like little things that I remember growing up that were a little bit different than all of my friends' houses that I went to. We hiked a lot and skied a lot when I was younger, but slowly as the scleroderma progressed, I remember my mom wasn't going on the trips with us anymore. She was saying goodbye and staying at home because she was really tired. And so that was really hard. There was a lot of, as Dr. Kilbourn said, a lot of changes in our schedule, but we tried to keep it somewhat consistent. I remember my brother learning to tie his shoes on my mom because she couldn't reach down, and just little things like that. Our pill cabinet always seemed to be a little bit bigger than anyone else's, with a lot of bottles that I just didn't understand any of the names to, but I didn't really understand what was going on. For a while, I just knew that something was amiss growing up. And so as things started getting worse, I started becoming a little bit more curious about what was going on. I'm pretty curious by nature. I think my mom would tell you I probably ask way too many questions all the time, always wondering what's going on, snooping in everyone's business. I think it's the bane of my brother's existence sometimes. I tend to be a little bit nosy. And so when things started getting worse, I knew after talking to my mom now, I knew way more than she thought I knew. I was really intuitive about what was going on, the conversations between her and my dad. And so when things really started progressing, I was a little stressed. I don't think I knew the word stressed, as Dr. Kilbourn said at the time. I was just knew something was wrong, and I didn't really know what there was to be done to fix it. And I was a little afraid about what would happen. And so around fourth grade, my parents kind of sat us all down to have a tough conversation about my mom and where the scleroderma had progressed, and that if it kept progressing and we didn't take some sort of measure, then it would be really bad. And so I remember around that time, they started looking into stem cell transplants. And luckily, my mom she got approved for a stem cell transplant. And so that was another hard conversation about that transplant wasn't in Colorado, it was in Chicago. And so me and my brothers had school still, so we were able to stay home while I went to Chicago, but it was definitely really difficult at the time. I think anytime you don't have your parents for an extended period of time, it's a little confusing. My brother was pretty young at the time, and my older brother was like pretty older, so he kind of knew more so. But again, I was always asking questions about what was going on. I remember like we had bunk beds with both of my brothers, and so I would ask my older brother like questions for like hours every night. He'd be like, I just want to go to sleep, Anna, like I can't keep answering these questions. But I was just really curious about what was going on, why it particularly happened to our family. I think I was a little confused, and specifically with the nature of scleroderma, I think it's really hard. Growing up, you hear a lot about like different cancers and stuff, like big buzzwords that you kind of know what that consists of. But with scleroderma, you really never, or at least I've never really heard it talked about besides in the context of spaces where scleroderma is discussed. And so I was really confused about like what scleroderma was and how that impacted the body, specifically with like my third grade biology background. I didn't really fully understand what was going on. And so when my mom and my dad were gone in Chicago, I think that's what really sparked my curiosity, like why us? Why is this happening? And my brothers really helped a lot. I think them as a support system, along with my grandparents, my cousins, really helped alleviate a lot of fears. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have them there to answer those questions. And I think for my younger brother, it was also really important when he really didn't know what was going on. I remember like one night we were in our bunk beds. He came down to mine. He was like, do you think mom and dad are going to come back? And I was like, I hope so. But I didn't really know the answer either. I think he's always been better at asking the hard-hitting questions. I kind of am all over the ballpark. But it's really hard, but there's a happy ending. My parents both came home, thankfully. And over time, my mom started getting better. Things started becoming easier. I like remember vividly the day when she like could touch her toes again. It was really, really exciting. But it was the little victories after that that like really like came home. And so here are some pictures of all of us. I think putting faces to like the story helps a lot. In the first picture on the left, you can see my mom as she's progressed with scleroderma. She put that all together. And you can kind of see how she's changed over the years. And then on the right, that's our family. A lot of pictures of us, but just like over time, how things have changed. I mean, we've definitely grown a lot taller than my mom. She's now the shortest in the family, but that's definitely changed. But yeah, that was pre all those pictures on the right, besides the bottom right one, were pre stem cell transplant. And so as things started to improve, we started becoming involved with the Scleroderma Foundation, which was really impactful to my life. I don't really know where I would be without the Scleroderma Foundation. I think putting context to everything that had happened in my life by meeting other people with scleroderma really helped explain a lot of things to me. It like alleviated a lot of the fears and the stress I still had about scleroderma. It kind of gave my mom a community, but also me a community by relation, because I really understood that this happens to more people than just our family. And so specifically like advocating with Cindy, with my mom, has helped me and my mom have a lot of these conversations afterward. This picture is of my mom. Like she still came to every event that I had, like me at a play. But she definitely like the scleroderma had progressed. And so you can like see by her hands and her skin that things were really changing and things were a lot harder. Definitely spent a lot of time in bed during those years. I think me and my mom have watched most of the rom-coms in existence together, which I'm not complaining about. I definitely have a bit broad knowledge of that. But it definitely changed a lot of things in my childhood, but also like it taught me a lot, watching my mom fight scleroderma and really like go through that. It has taught me a lot about strength and perseverance. And so a lot of life lessons I've learned and been able to process after the fact have happened through those meetings with scleroderma and through those conversations with my mom, and hearing her perspective of having scleroderma and then her hearing my perspective of her having scleroderma really helped us grow through that. And so those have been really imperative. I think also having my brothers in some of those meetings to hear what they were, because each of us had very different perspectives, very different ideas of what happened. Same life, but this is my mom when she got her transplant. And so this is all of us at the hospital in Chicago. We all flew out, but just a really powerful picture. It's like right after we sang happy birthday to her, because it was her first birthday with her new stem cells. So really happy day. But watching my mom growing up, watching my mom fight an illness like scleroderma has like been really impactful, but in good and hard ways. But I've learned a lot about myself, about her, about my family, and it's ultimately brought us a lot closer, and ultimately taught us a lot about each other. We've been able to have those hard conversations. I think like really nothing is a hard conversation now after we've talked about scleroderma a lot. And my mom is incredible. I can't say enough good things about her if you ever have the chance to meet her, but she's been through a lot, and she's taught us all a lot by like being positive the whole time. She really set the foundation of like having a positive mindset about everything. And so now when anything hard in my life, I'm like, well, it can't be harder than having scleroderma and having a stem cell transplant, and like having a positive mindset through that, and potty training your like 3-year-old and going to every single soccer game. Like that could not be, anything can't be harder than that. And so I just have so much respect and love for her for going through that. But the only advice I really have to parents is to have those conversations. It can be really hard, but kids definitely have a lot of questions. We definitely know a lot more than you think, as my mom would say. And having multiple conversations, like one, I don't think would be enough, but like coming back to that and like really having a positive mindset about it all has been like really impactful. And for kids, having a support group, I think my brothers, I like cannot imagine life without 2 brothers who like distract me and who like answer those questions. It would have been really, really difficult. And so making sure like having that support system, whether that be family, whether that be friends, it's like more important than I can even express. But yeah, that's my story. Thank you so much for listening and allowing me to share that all. But if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer.
Thank you, Anna. So if anyone has any questions, please enter them into the chat and we will get them addressed. And while you're typing, I'll ask one. So I've heard of the spoons concept. I don't know if Dr. Kilbourn, if you have ever used that with parents, where for younger kids, they might start off a good day as like 6 spoons, and a parent can explain if it's a bad day, they've only got 2 spoons to use or whatever. So just you can kind of explain that, and maybe Anna, kind of when your mom was going through real periods of real fatigue, how you all kind of address that. So.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard specifically the spoons. I mean, there are different ways you could do that, but I think that is a great idea. Again, it's taking away that uncertainty and the guessing from the child's viewpoint. And so I think anything like that, again, being really open with how you're feeling is important, and that could be a really nice way to do that, especially with younger kids. I should have added too, so I was listening to Anna, and I thought about this after I finished. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 14. So I can really emphasize the importance of talking with kids. Back in the day, when I was 14, there was no internet, and no one in my family would say the C word, but I knew there was something going on. And so I remember going to the library and looking, through encyclopedias and books and trying to learn what I could about cancer. Which I just did that all by myself. So, can't emphasize enough of trying to really having that open communication with kids. Now, I think the danger is they can get on the internet and get a lot of really scary information. So you've got to be monitoring that too, because now it's sort of the opposite end with that. But that said, Anna, I'll let you add in something.
Yeah, my mom was pretty communicative about hard days. I think also I think we understood her cues after a while, like that she was having difficult days, and that my grandma would bring dinner over, that she couldn't necessarily get up to make dinner, or if she needed a day in bed, she'd be like, hey, everyone, let's watch a movie today, instead of, hey, let's go outside and like ride our bikes. And so I think she was really good about not necessarily always saying, hey, this is a hard day, but using other words to really express that it was a difficult day, and that she needed to rest. And especially after the stem cell transplant, she was really good about, hey, I just need some time to sleep. And after chemo, I think specifically she definitely needed some time to rest. And after we kind of knew what was going on, and my parents both had sat us down and kind of told us what was going on, I think we really understood how it was. And so I think a lot of the time it was us keeping each other busy, but definitely times where, hey, everyone needs to quiet down. Our house tends to be louder than anywhere I've ever been sometimes. And so hey, quiet down, mom needs to sleep. But I think just having that open line of communication, and also again, other avenues of spending time, or making different ways, watching movies, or maybe playing a board game in bed, might be a different way to go about spending time together, but maybe not in the most active way, or maybe in a more restful way.
Great. Well, Maria has posted in the chat a few links if everyone can look at those and reach out if you have any questions to the Scleroderma Foundation. You can also follow us on Facebook. She posted that link. So if you've got any other questions, I don't see any coming in. So I'll keep my eye on that for the next few minutes. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Dr. Kilbourn and Anna. It was great to have you with us today. We'd also like to thank our event sponsor, UC Health. We would like for you to connect with us after this virtual conference. We offer multiple support group options each month. You can also connect in between meetings via email or phone. You can find those in the chat. And our contact information is there in the chat. If you like this event and want to see more, connect with the National Scleroderma Foundation Rocky Mountain chapter. And you can see that in the chat. Membership to the foundation is $25 a year. Your donation supports the Scleroderma Foundation's mission to advance medical research, promote disease awareness, and provide support and education, like we are having today, to people living with scleroderma and their families and networks. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope we will see you. Oh, questions. We're not done yet. What advice do you have for older children?
Well, I think that, I mean, I don't know the specific how old. I think that, the things that we talked about today, it's just sort of tailoring them to what for older children. I think teenagers and adolescents can be challenging because they're, as I said, already struggling, trying to figure out their own identity and where they fit and their peer groups. And they're in that process of sort of breaking away or getting more involved with peers and less involved with family. And so when there are health issues and things within the family that are causing change, that can be especially stressful for them because they're not sure where to go. I saw this a lot in my younger sister, in our family, where she was acted out a lot as a teenager because she felt some resentment that why do I have to put more focus on our family, and our family has issues, and why can't we just be like every other family so I can be, doing things with my peers and doing that. So I think that with older children, if that thinking about teens especially, I think it could be really valuable to find, professional support can be helpful, or someone outside of the family that they trust who they can express some of their feelings to without having to worry about upsetting family members.
Thank you. And then a question for Anna. What was the role of your father as your family dealt with your mother's illness?
My dad was a really important role, and that had a really important role. I think he was very much like a support system for our mom, but also he kept up with all of us when things got crazy. When my mom needed rest, my dad played a big role in making sure that we gave her that space. He had a lot of conversations with us when she was in Chicago in the hospital. It was really difficult for us to see her, and so my dad spent a lot of time talking to us about what was going on and really keeping us updated. So the calls would be through my dad when we FaceTimed her while she was home. And then after that, my dad was really the one who ultimately told us a lot of the things that were going on. And he was also really positive about the whole situation, and still is. He has a really positive mindset. I think a lot of my humor comes from my dad. He's a very sarcastic guy. And so he approached a lot of things with a really positive and a really humorous mindset, which helps bring laughter to maybe uncomfortable and really hard conversations, which I think is something that we really needed as a family at the time. I think when laughter is scarce, anything that you can have with that is really important. And I think he was just always really there for everything. My mom was too, but my dad was always a big part of the support system that we needed, and answered any question I ever had. So he played a very big role in my childhood and growing up with a mom. And I think that both parts of my relationship with both of them really played a role in me being able to cope and handle the stress of my mom having scleroderma.
Great, thank you, Anna. Well, again, thank you to both of you and those of you participating today. We do hope we will see you again at one of our monthly support group meetings or our walks coming up in June. Get involved. We'd love to have you be a part of our scleroderma family here in Colorado and surrounding states. Thank you, everyone.